Well, hello everybody. It's Sarah, the Real Simple Mama, and there's Sadie, and here's my feathered trio. And we are going to give you some suggestions for how to keep your flock, your chickens or quail or whatever you may have, cool in warmer temperatures. Now, the most recent video that I've done is about different chicken breeds, and one of the things I talked about was when you're picking what breed or breeds of chicken you're going to get for your backyard chickens, for your flock, is dependent on what climate you live in, what kind of zone you are in, what the weather's like, particularly what's the coldest it gets in winter, what's the hottest it gets in summer. And we are in South Texas, so here at the beginning of May, we're in our first 90-degree week right now. Of course, everything I'm saying is going to be in Fahrenheit. And so it's already starting to get warm out here. It is a rather still, warm day. And so what I wanted to do is, if you are in an area, oh, sorry, that's my finger. If you are in an area where it's going to be getting hot, I wanted to give you the suggestions that we do on how to tell if your chickens are getting too hot, as well as I can think of at least 4 or 5 really cheap, easy strategies to keep them cool. Now, they haven't gotten their snacks, so here is suggestion number 1. You don't have to give your chickens anything other than their layer crumble or their layer pellets every day. That's totally up to you. Play in the water where it's nice and warm. So we don't give our chickens snacks in the morning because supposedly there's a theory that they will do, they'll lay better if you just let them come out and get their morning sun and don't give them anything other than their regular food. So one thing you can do, and I know this looks ridiculous, so we've got a little bit of leftover plain pasta. There's no salt, no butter, no nothing on it. Some plain green beans, and then these ridiculous looking concoctions. It's just like the cheapest bag of frozen mixed vegetables with water that I put into a muffin cup to essentially make these little individual serving frozen chicken treats. And of course they can only peck at it a little bit as it's frozen. I'm going to give it to them right here. There's our buddy the cardinal right there on the fence. So what we're going to do is give this to them, but of course as it thaws, it's giving them cold water as well as cold vegetables. And they're like, "You're late, lady. Where have you been? Sadie, get back." I don't know why my dog is like really trying to come in here today. I apologize for the goofy angle. I'm trying to close the gate eloquently here behind me. Our chicken pen is a new development. If you haven't seen it, I've got a couple of videos on YouTube about how we built this run, why we did it, the strategies we did with it, and there's an article coming out on realsimplemama.com this week. All right, so here we go, birds. So they're getting a lot of snacks today. So obviously this will take them a couple of hours before it's fully melted, but it's something nice that's already ready to go. It's low effort, it's free. Okay, and we'll go right into our next strategy here. Now, I'm all about doing stuff that's minimalist, doing stuff that's sort of like what they would get in the wild. So you can do things like give them a mister, you know, you can mount one up in the tree or whatever. I don't like doing stuff like that because I feel like not only is that, you know, more of an expense, of course, but I worry about stuff molding or getting too wet, or that's more equipment that you've got to worry about maintaining. So we don't do that. Now, if you come and just spray an area, as you can see, just because we've got a huge, not this tree here, but the big one right there is like a 50 or 60 at least year-old live oak. So we've got some zones where we don't have a lot of grass because it's so shaded. So I come out with the hose and just manually water different zones every day just to, you know, try to help with the grass. We've only lived in this house for about 2 years. You can also spray a zone down with the hose. Chickens, here's a random interesting fact. The quickest way to cool down a chicken is to get their feet or their legs cooler, because that's of course the only part of their body where it's really just exposed skin, right, where they're not covered with feathers or whatever. So if that means, now chickens don't normally like water, but we're gonna go buy a $5 like tiny little kiddie swimming pool and have water in that, and if they look like they're panting, they're getting too hot, just drop them in. That's the quickest way, even faster than them trying to ingest cold water or anything like that, is just get their feet, get their legs cold. The other thing that I just said, if you didn't catch it, is chickens will pant when they get too hot. They're not like us, obviously they're not capable of sweating. They don't really have a lot of other strategies if they're too hot. So you want to keep an eye on your chickens and make sure that they're not panting. If they're panting, then that means you do need to do something to remedy their temperature. They are too hot. Obviously, you want to make sure they've got a lot of shade. Hopefully an area that's open enough that they can get some air circulation, get some breeze going through. Again, I'm not really going to particularly recommend you do anything that involves electricity, like bringing out a fan, bringing out a mister, stuff like that. I feel like there's other remedies you can do that are cheaper and easier and not, you know, so much prone to having user error or, you know, any other kind of issues. So a dust bath actually is another remedy that you can do to keep them cool. The ground will be cooler, especially if they dig underneath, you know, the top layer of dirt or the top layer of leaves. You'll see them lounging and just trying to flatten their body out and get as much of their, you know, their body mass onto the cool ground. That works as well. Another cheap strategy. Now, you may not have the same watering situation as far as having water, and of course, duh, they have to have water at all times on demand. I went ahead and opened this so that you can see. So this right now, if you haven't seen my coop hacks video, it'll show you how we made this. Another very cheap, very easy automatic water or automatic feeder. And essentially this is 4-inch PVC that went down with an elbow joint and converted down to a 2-inch, and then this is 2-inch for their water, and it's got the little, pardon the name, it's really what they're called chicken nipples. So don't let, they're like, wait a minute, what? So we get bottles of water like normal plastic, you know, Dasani or Aquafina or, you know, whatever your brand of choice is. Fill them with water and freeze them. And when it's a salt, like basically essentially like a gigantic ice cube, right? Like an ice bottle, drop it into their water. Now the problem is that since chickens, they're not exactly the smartest. So me just doing that and walking away, they don't know, oh, hey, this water is going to be a lot colder. So the other thing you can do is, you know, keep their normal water source, but add an additional water source that's more just like a tray. See, and I use those old pot trays that are kind of falling apart. I'll give them some new stuff. Obviously, you don't need to do anything that's going to be fragile or break or have sharp edges that they can cut their feet on. But just freeze an old bottle of water, like fill it, not all the way full, but almost all the way full. Freeze it till it's solid, and then drop it out here. And then we just rotate the bottles. You want to leave those bottles, though, once they're out with your chickens, you want to leave them separate from, you know, your regular food in the fridge or whatever. So make sure that bottle is designated only for chickens from now on, just because it'll be contaminated. But, you know, leave the bottle closed and just, you know, drop it in a pool of water, and that'll cool it off. So it is definitely warm out here, but my girls, I've been watching them. They're not really panting or anything. Now see that little veggie muffin? The frozen vegetables and the water. I could go ahead and put some water in there and it would make them thaw faster, but they're good. They're okay. It's not too hot. As far as vegetables, I do have another couple of videos about chicken snacks, things that they can eat, things you cannot give them. Any of the cheap, you know, peas and carrots or corn, or there's a whole bunch of different combinations. What you want to avoid if you're giving your chickens frozen vegetables is avoid anything with onions. Onions are bad. Garlic is good, onions are bad. And then of course anything that's pre-seasoned or has any kind of sauce or anything like that. They cannot have onions. They cannot have any citrus. You want to avoid, I mean, there's other things that are weird, like avocado pits. Like I don't know why you would give avocado pits to your chickens, but you know, there you go. So it works out well for us as far as, you know, the weather, because in the morning I just let them out. I check and make sure that their food and water is good. And then they don't get anything else except just, you know, their normal food and water, of course. But then in the afternoon, when it starts to get hot, there you go. Additionally, again, not citrus, but you could freeze fruit. Like if you're getting some overripe bananas, that would work. All different kinds of stuff like that. There's a nice breeze going through here right now, which is great. For a dust bath, you know, you've got options. Again, I'm just racking my brain for all of the things you can do to make sure your chickens don't get too hot. If your coop has windows, make sure you open up the windows during the day just to let some breeze go through, circulation, making sure that there's not an accumulation of ammonia. But the main things that you want to take away from this video, even more so than like the specific strategies that I've given you, because there's 1,000 ways to cool down an animal. But I guess the two most important things I hope you take away from this video, ooh, Callie's chomping on a green bean, is that you want to make sure your chickens are not panting. If they are panting, you need to do something like now. Because chickens are a lot less resistant to heat than they are to cold. Chickens can chill, like they can, that was a bad joke, but they can hang in when it's snowing, when it's super crazy cold and wet and disgusting. They, most breeds will do better with that than they do when it gets too hot. There's only so much you can do when it's too hot. So watch to make sure that they're not panting, and then keep in mind that while they don't particularly like water, it's definitely an option to get their feet wet and their legs wet. Anywhere where you see, you know, their skin is the best option to cool them down quickly. You can also get chicken diapers and bring them in the house if you absolutely have to. Look at these brats. A final suggestion, if you're giving your chickens snacks, obviously I don't want to have rotting green beans and like nasty stuff like that out here. I don't want it out here for days or attracting other kinds of animals or anything like that. So when I give them treats, I always give it to them in a tray, because whatever they don't eat, hopefully, will still be in the tray, and then I can pick that up and dump it out into the trash really easily. I did put it up. That's just a cement, like a stepping stone. Of course, chickens, since they're not the brightest stars in the sky, sometimes they will step on the tray and like flip it. But hopefully me propping it up like that will help. And hopefully in the next couple of weeks we can get them a little chicken swimming pool. We'll have a little paradise. But as it starts to get warmer, if your chickens are living outside full time, please, 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 you know, make sure that you're checking on them often enough that you can recognize the signs of if your chickens are getting too hot, and you have some ideas. You've got some stuff in the freezer that you can bring out to them. It's easy for you to give them some extra water, maybe create another dust bath in the shade. All of that stuff is cheap. It's easy to do. It's not like specialty where you have to order it online or go to a special store. It's just really easy stuff to take care of our birds. Because if they get too hot, I mean, obviously you can lose them, they can pass away, but also they will not lay every day. Their body kind of goes into in conservation mode, where we just need to conserve energy and have our priorities. So you won't be getting as many eggs either. That can be another sign that maybe they're getting too hot. Feel free to add your suggestions, your comments, any questions that you've got. We'll be back soon with more content. But I'm Sarah, the Real Simple Mama, and it looks like I'm going to watch some chickens eat some beans. Say bye, girls.